moment is here for us to hear from our wonderful panel this evening, or not panel, our wonderful Fireside Chat. I'm so used to all the panels that we have, as he just described, but this is an extra special one where we really get to hear from someone who's taken the desire to give back, the value of a mission, and take it to the next level. And so I'm really thrilled to invite you and have you here to hear this specific Fireside Chat. Our moderator for this evening, many of you know him as Akhtar, but he's Dr. Akhtar Badshah. Please raise your hand right here. A wonderful board member. I've learned quite a great deal from him. Him and I share the passion of participating on many boards and giving back to the community and academics and supporting entrepreneurship. He does this in many different capacities. He is the chief catalyst at the Catalytic Innovators Group, where he advises organizations and individuals to catalyze their strategy focused on social and philanthropic investments. He's a distinguished practitioner at the University of Washington at the Evans School of Public Policy and Governance, the Business School at the Bothell campus, and is a faculty advisor at the START Center in the Development of Global Health. Those two alone, how do you have so much time? I don't know. There's even more. He led Microsoft's philanthropic efforts for 10 years, where he administered the company's community investment and employee contributions. He was very instrumental in launching both the Unlimited Potential and Youth Spark, the company's focus to bring digital technology to underserved communities and youth all over the world. Many of you guys know him as the author of The Purpose Mindset. If you don't have this book, add it to your Christmas list. The Purpose Mindset, How Microsoft Inspires Employees and Alumni to Change the World. Was recently published by HarperCollins Leadership. You can find his information on our site as well. He serves on boards of many nonprofits. When he got the list, it was too many to name, but I only wanted to name our favorite one, TiE Seattle. And so I'd like to welcome him announce our guest speaker and start our discussion tonight.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining. I mean, first of all, just an amazing accomplishment from our leadership at TiE. Madhu set us on a path. Kishore has just taken us off as a rocket ship, and I don't know the number of times he called me for all sorts of things. So I just thought I was going to be a quiet board member. I'm not an entrepreneur. Anyways, all I was saying is that it's a great pleasure to serve on this board with some amazing people and a community that is truly just awesome. I'm just thrilled that we have such brilliant people in our midst, and I've had the good fortune to know and come to know Sunny Gurpreet Singh and his work. And he's been gracious with his time and come to my class and talk to my students. So I thought that it would just be a perfect way for us to end this year, to hear from somebody who's had a very fascinating journey. So I'd love to invite Sunny Gurpreet Singh here. I'm not going to do a bio intro because I'm going to have a conversation and he's going to share his journey with us. So please join me in welcoming Sunny Gurpreet Singh. So I want to just, first of all, thank you again for joining us and giving us your time. But I want to start off by, you have a very fascinating story. Most of us have interesting stories, but there are some that actually, you somehow landed up in Montana in a t-shirt in the middle of the winter. And tell us, why did you do that? There's a story behind it, so I'd love to.
Sure. Firstly, I think, Akhtar and TiE, you're very lucky to have me today, because after today, I'm going to start charging for my speaking engagements. So don't please forget that. Yeah, so it's been a fascinating journey. I came to the US in '87. I spent half my life in the US, half in India. And the reason I ended up in the US was because, some of you might know, was on the nudging of an astrologer. I had no intent of, I graduated from IIT. I think I had, by that time I was about to. And I never applied abroad like a lot of people from my college do. And one day, as luck would have it, I ended up with an astrologer on the behest of my friend. And he said, Sunny, I'm going to take you to my astrology. We're going to find out if you're going to be a pauper or a king. And, being a 22, 23-year-old lad, he said, yeah, sure, whatever you want. And I had spent the night at his place, and we got up in the morning, we were having breakfast with his family, and then he remembered it, I had forgotten it. And so the astrologer in Jama just said, Sunny, so he read my horoscope and everything, and then after half an hour he looks up at me, and then he looked at my friend, then looks at me and looks at my friend and says, he's going to leave you way behind. And that was my end of my friendship with him, and he came from a very rich family. So I started applying, and I was late applying, so I applied to a bunch of universities. Montana State gave me a full ride. And as you might not believe it, that I knew that Montana was somewhere in the north. I didn't look up the map. I didn't look at the weather. I landed up in Montana in March in my T-shirt. And at that time, I was wearing a turban, so I was a Joshila Sadar. But I think the takeaway is this, that here I was planning to spend my life in India, but a curveball came and I landed up in the US. I landed in Montana, and every day was a new day because I didn't plan anything. I was not, I have to do this, I have to get here. And that has been a story of my life. It's never been motivated with where I want to be. It's all been motivated with what I want to do. And so when the US thing came about, I ended up in the US, even my air ticket was a loan from a bank, from a loan officer whose daughter was my sister's best friend. He said, he's good for the loan, give him the loan for the air ticket. And so here's a kid who could not afford an air ticket. I had maybe $1 or so equivalent in my pocket. Came to the US. I like to tell a small story I think you'll find very interesting. I landed up at JFK, and my flight to Bozeman, Montana was from LaGuardia. And so here I am, I'm just soaking it all in because everything is new, right? And I'm not a guy, I was not a very, very well-traveled guy. And so I went to pick up my luggage, and there was this Indian fella standing next to me, and I started chatting with him, saying, which hotel should I stay in? It's almost like 8, 9 in the evening, or 7, 8 in the evening. And he said, you know what, why don't you just sleep in my office? I said, wow, what a guy. It's like, I can sleep in his office, I can save my hotel money. And by the time the luggage came, he had disappeared. So that was that. And I said, okay. I slept at the airport. And I woke up in the morning, and I went to the McDonald's in the airport, and I was hungry. I was a 23-year-old lad, I was hungry. And I ordered a whole bunch of stuff, and I apparently over-ordered my breakfast. And I was maybe 30, 40, 50 cents short. And I said, I don't have enough money in my pocket, and so why don't you take something off the menu, of my order? And he said, don't worry, welcome to America. So it's an interesting twist of fate that a fellow Indian sitting over there talking to me saying, I'll help you, did not. But the white American who had nothing to do with me said, 50 cents is nothing, enjoy the food. And so I said, I'll be okay in this country. And that was my entry into the US, that was my entry into Montana.
Here you are in Montana in a T-shirt, and you had an interesting journey there. You spent time, you had to study. Talk a little bit about that, and then you kind of landed up in Seattle after that.
Montana was interesting. Having come from a competitive college and then going to Montana State, which was not competitive, grades were easy to come by. And so grades were not a problem. And so I said, okay, let's enjoy Montana. And it's a beautiful place. It's God's country. And so to keep myself occupied and not get bored, I took equestrian classes, 2 of them. I took fashion classes because all the women were there. No, but let me clarify that a little bit. I always wanted to be a fashion designer. You don't believe me? Actually, when I was in the final year of my college, the 2 things I picked up. I started playing golf, and I picked up golf in my final year in college in Delhi. And I used to attend a couple of classes in the morning, go to Delhi Golf Club. By 12 o'clock, have a sandwich, play a round of 18, summer or winter didn't matter, have a little bit a bite with a beer, and then I used to go home. And that was my ritual pretty much every day. And in 1 year, I became a 14 handicapper. No, actually, in 6 to 7 months, I became a 14 handicapper. Nothing to brag about, but don't play golf with me now. You're going to regret it because you're going to be laughing all the way and have stomach aches. And the second thing was, I was thinking of becoming either a golf professional or a fashion designer. So I even applied to FIT and Parsons Schools of Design, and I said, here are my designs. I think I've got talent and creativity, and if you give me a full scholarship, I'll come. FIT said you should stay back in India. And Parsons gave me 60% scholarship. I said, not enough. They had to give me 100% scholarship and throw in the air ticket. That didn't happen either. So anyway, I took 2 fashion classes, 2 equestrian classes, a couple of ski classes. I took dance classes, and so I took all kinds of fun classes over there because everything was paid for. But what I realized was, for the first time I was by myself, and I understood the potential and the giving nature of people. I was probably the only guy in Montana with a turban. At that time, I used to wear a turban. But people were just damn nice to me. I made friends easy. I was outgoing. There was a guy who I used to tutor, and he knew that I was making money to send money home. In my scholarship, I was sending money home because my father, by the time he retired, had nothing in his bank. There was no life savings for him. He was living in homes that were offered by my relatives to stay free in. He had a scooter that was 15 years old. And so there was no money in the family, was spent in the education, etc. And so in my scholarship from semester 1, I was sending money home. And he would give me all kinds of odd jobs. He'll say, okay, Sunny, come and help me over here. Even if he didn't need the help, he gave me the help. I had friends who just, very nice, very accommodating, helping in any which they can. And so I realized that, me being alone, a lot of people didn't have to do a lot of things for me, but they did. And there was, yes, being in Montana, there was discrimination too. At one time, I'll tell you a story. I was a lab assistant, and somewhere a computer or 2 had disappeared. And the fingers are pointing at me saying that Sunny has stolen those computers. And guess who came and told me that? There was a white American woman who was part of my master's program, came and said, Sunny, they're talking like that about you, and I'm pissed. And I gave them a piece of my mind. And of course, they couldn't find anything because nothing was done, etc. But I encountered that too, and there was discrimination. There was probably, who's this guy? But that never kind of stuck to me. What stuck to me was the good people, my focus of just working hard every day, sending money home, and just doing the right thing every day. I could have taken the victim syndrome and saying, oh my God, look, the discrimination, I look different and they look differently at me and this guy's bad. I could have done all of that. But none of that stuck to me. It just made me work harder. It just made me fight harder. There was no job on campus I did not do. Everything from night clerk to setting up the stadium at the rodeo, cleaning up after basketball games, tutoring the basketball players, show snuffling 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning in the hard winters of Montana, doing banquets, dishwashing, every job I did. And so what I focused on was what I needed to do, not what others thought I needed to do or what others thought of me, right? And that was the takeaway that when I look back, when you're in the moment, you don't think about those things. But when you reflect back, that's what came back to me and saying, oh, I behaved that way. And the bad things never stuck to me, and the goodness I carried all along.
So how did you land up in Seattle?
So Seattle was, and I think in my final summer over there, I did a couple of masters over 3 years, and I think the last summer I had gone to Alaska to work in a fishery. I took every job. And so for 2 months I went to Alaska, to Kodiak Island, worked in a fishery, and then I had gone through Seattle either way. And I worked on a halibut boat too, but that's another story. But it's quite an experience. I wouldn't wish that job on anybody. The only thing worse than that would be, putting a roof up on your house. Those are 2 of the worst jobs you can do. Backbreaking. We used to work about 18, 19 hours a day, day after day. We were sleeping and, cleaning the fish up. So I know how will you clean the fish up. So be careful what you eat. And then I liked Seattle. Somehow Seattle called me. I said, and I was going to move, because I came from a bigger city, I had to move out of Montana sooner or later. I said, Seattle is going to be my number 1 choice. So something in Seattle just called me. I liked Seattle. And so I applied to a couple of jobs, maybe 3, I think. And I had gone to India for the first time. I had got my green card, came back. There was a call on my voicemail. And I went to my manager and said, look, I've been looking to leave, and this call has come in, and I need a couple of days off to go interview. And I don't know for what reason, or maybe you'll know later when I share some more secrets about myself. He said, sure, you're so nice, you're asking me to go. And so I went in there. The guy offered me a job at the end of the interview saying, Sunny, move to Seattle. Went back, told my manager, look, I'm going to move to Seattle. How much time do you need? And I gave him all the time he needed. And I moved with my dog in tow on a U-Haul from Bozeman, Montana to Seattle.
And you just kept getting fired. So talk about that. I mean, was it the dog or the...
Yes, I've done 3 jobs in my life before I started my first company. 1 in Montana and then 2 in Seattle. And in the first job, after the first year, my manager said, look, one thing about me was I'm a very stubborn guy. Stubborn in a way that if I believe in something, I will do it. If I believe in something, I'm going to say it. And so long my conviction is strong. Well, I hear everybody, I listen to everybody, but so long once I make up my mind, which I always do, then I do what I think is right. And then I don't waver from that. And so I did butt heads here and there a little bit. And so after 1 year, my manager said, look, Sunny, I'll give you a great recommendation. Just leave, just go. Because the CIO has asked me to do so. And I said, no, John, look, I'm going to work really hard. I'm a good guy. I'm going to prove to you that I'm a great hire. And so that was after year 1, but somehow I spent 3 years, and then I left. Then I'm in my second job in Seattle, which was at Expeditors International. And after 1 year, the same thing happened, a year and a half, give or take. And the guy comes and saying, look, Sunny, you should go. You're not doing well over here. I said, I'm not scratching my head. I said, what's going on? I'm not a dumb guy. I might not be the smartest guy in the room, but I'm not a dumb guy. And so I started thinking, I said, first job after a year, I'm out. Second job after a year, I'm out. And I said, what should I do? And that's when it dawned upon me that I got to do something on my own, running at my own pace, doing things the way I want to do it, being my own boss, driving myself the way I want to drive. And so I started thinking of becoming an entrepreneur. And at that point, I was leaving Expeditors, and a friend of mine called from Microsoft, because I was an expert in EDI, electronic commerce, and supply chain. That was my background. And I was a good student of that industry, and I knew the industry well. What I didn't know well was programming. And both the jobs are programming jobs, and this is, by the way, going to tickle you. I have a master's in computer science. And I've never written a single line of code in either of my company. That's why I think the products worked. And so, so that's another topic of discussion of what I think of the education system of the world. Your kids will love my dialogue. You might not, but the kids will love it. You could send your kids to me. I think they will thrive. So he called me. I said, look, Mario, I can come, but I'm going to leave after a year because I'm going to start something of my own. So first I said no to him. And then I was thinking, I said, Mario, I'm going to start something. He said, just come and just work with me. And when you have to leave, you leave. I said, okay, I'll commit 1 year to you, and that's okay. I'm in. And I think if I'd given him more than a year, he would have fired me too. And so I was a corporate misfit, and I said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And that's how my journey changed from being a corporate person to being an entrepreneur.
So there are many entrepreneurs here, but in many cases, I'm not sure people have gone through your journey of starting something and sticking with it for over 20 years with these massive ups and downs that you've had. Share a little bit about what you decided to do and how that journey unfolded.
Yeah, so it's, I tell people I should have been dead by now. We went through a lot. Remember that I was a student of the industry. I was never a high-flying manager. I never managed teams. I was never an executive. When I started my company, I didn't even know VCs existed or how to raise money. I started my company on my credit cards. I maxed my credit cards, have a little bit of consulting money on the side, and that's how I started the company. And I still, when I look back, I'm in awe of how I did it. Because by all indications, I should have failed. I should have failed through and through. But the journey was not easy. The EdFX journey, my first startup, which was in health tech. I'll give you a story that I think will be revealing of what I went through. And it's a story that I think is a good takeaway for anybody who's an entrepreneur. See, being an entrepreneur, from the outside looks very glamorous. Oh my God, you're an entrepreneur, you have a startup, and you're your own boss, and you're doing this, you raise this kind of money. And it's like saying, oh my God, you travel all over the world. But ask the people who travel all over the world, it's boring after a while. Sit in a plane and just take a 10-hour flight, 15-hour flight, 20-hour flight. It looks sexy, oh my God, you travel all these countries. And so it was 1999. We started the company in 96. It was 3 to 4 years into the company. And things started going bad. Our main customer, who was bringing 70% of our revenue at that time was about $2 million and change. And they lost their funding, we lost their customer. So here we are, 100 plus people, about maybe 25, 30, 40 people here, the rest in Eastern Europe. Revenue was 2 million and change. And suddenly we lose that customer. The product that we have, the sales leader that we had, the pipeline was not there that he was saying was there. So the pipeline collapsed, imploded. And here we are at the worst case, the worst situation or the worst time of, it was in 1999, 2000, we had about 2 million in tax debt, 2.1 and change. We had stopped paying our taxes. My controller said it's like a free loan. You can pay the taxes anytime. So that was not correct, but the blame is still mine. We stopped paying our landlord. We stopped paying all our vendors. At worst, we also stopped paying the payroll for 2 months. For 4 payrolls were missed. And so imagine a guy who's never run a business, has never raised money in his life, is a student of the industry, doesn't have much business experience. Started my company with a credit card, so I have no idea what to do. And here I am. I'm an internal optimist. My glass is always full. My belief is there's nothing I cannot do. That's my belief. I'm always saying I can make anything happen. I had that conviction and strength in me. I'm lying in bed looking at the ceiling saying, why should I get up today? The IRS is calling me. My own people are asking, Sunny, when are you going to have a paycheck? The vendors are calling, the landlord is calling, etc. I used to meet the IRS officer every month. He became a friend. And I used to tell him my stories of what we are doing and what are we winning, what are the revenues coming in, what our expenses are. He was a baseball nut. He loved baseball. His desire was to go and watch a baseball game in every stadium in the U.S. At that time, he had done all but 4 or 5, I think. And the interesting thing is that he understood that I was being honest. I was being truthful. And if I was in India, I would have been buried because I wouldn't have seen that kind of leniency and tolerance that this guy showed me because he believed in me, right? And when we paid off everything, we did not pay any penalties or interest on the owed taxes. He said, pay your principal and that's good enough at your own pace. It took us almost 4 or 5 years to pay the debt off. We paid everything off. And at that time I had to do some soul searching. Twice in my life I've done true soul searching. Maybe I have another third time, but let's not talk about that. The first time when I started at EdFX, I said, I was operating out my condo in Issaquah. I went to the bathroom, looked in the mirror and saying, if I lose a shirt off my back, and I'm working, what will happen if I lose a shirt off my back? He says, and I'll go to McDonald's, get a job, my friends come in, they ask for, Sunny, they order some burgers. Will I have any problem with that? And I said, if I lose a shirt off my back, McDonald's will give me a job, and I have no problem serving burgers to my friend. No problems. I said, okay, start the company. This is the second time I went. I said, we have 3 options. We can either shut the company down. My friends, family are saying, Sunny, shut the company down, go to Microsoft, you'll get a job, this and that. Or I could declare bankruptcy. And I entertained that in terms of, hey, what if I met a bankruptcy attorney? I was joking with my good friend Vijay. And Vijay Vashi. So I went to see him. I said, Vijay, what do I do? He gave his words of wisdom. I started bawling in front of him. I started crying. I said, I didn't know how to handle it. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, composed myself, came back. And, Vijay gave me a lot of good advice. The bankruptcy attorney, of course, didn't. The only good thing is she didn't charge me for that half an hour, 1 hour. And I was bawling in front of her, too. So here, I didn't know how to control myself. The emotions were so strong because I didn't know what to do. And the third option was to somehow plug along, move forward, plow through, the tough times. And I asked myself, what kind of role model do I want to be to my family and my colleagues to be to their family and friends? I said, if you have one more day to live, you have hope to survive tomorrow, then let's punt the decision of what to do with the company the next day. And as it would have it, day after day, we kept surviving. We made beautiful decisions. We bought things so cheap. We look at every company going defunct. We'll buy computer equipment from them. We came together as a team. We had downsized to about 25 people, 10, 11 here, the rest Eastern Europe. We became very tight. We had the best parties. We had the worst office, but the best parties. People will be there till 9, 10 at night. After work, we'll bring table tennis. We'll drink a little. And all of them stuck to the company except one person. And they were there till a few years ago. And by 2005, we paid all our debts off. We paid the IRS, we paid our employees, gave them stock options, we paid our vendors, everything was paid off, and then we never looked back. And, it's to be in a situation where you have no idea if you're going to survive the next day. In today's, I was 32 when I started my company, my first company. Today, you hear about mental fatigue people have. I didn't even know what stress was. It was not stress that I felt. It was a meditative state for a good few years of saying, I'm in a zone, I got to make things happen, and people are depending on me, and I will not fail. I could have failed, but and if I had failed, I would be in debt for a very, very long time. So somehow I had the inner strength, and what I discovered at that point, what was my North Star and my value system. Who am I? Everybody kind of, I think the crux of the takeaway from this should be, you should ask yourself, who am I? What defines you, right? And I always was like that, except that moment of adversity, the worst that you can encounter, brought the best out in me. And said my North Star was being resilient and being persevering. I was the last one to eat, the last one to get paid if there was any money left. I always carried my people with me. I never left anybody behind. I took care of everybody. And that's what defined me. The integrity was never compromised. I never lied to my guys. I told them exactly how things were, except I became over-communicative, right? And so that the worst time showed me who I truly was. And in the process, that became my foundation and my base and my platform upon which I built my life. I always had it, except that brought it out. And so I think the takeaway all of you should ask is, who am I? Do you know your purpose? Do you have a purpose? Do you know what makes you tick? And in the worst of times, will you hold true to that value system and North Star? If you've got that, and if you're a patient person, there's nothing in life that you cannot achieve.
So let's pivot because we'll run out of time. So you just plugged on, kept going, things changed, things happened. And in that, you discovered certain things about the industry that you were in, which was the healthcare industry. And of course, you had this fabulous exit. And that kind of took you to this next journey that you've now started, which is with Roundglass. But there was this moment where you kind of discovered what we all need to do as individuals. So talk a little bit about that in terms of your understanding of the healthcare system, the challenges that were there, and the aha moment that you had within that space.
Yeah, that's interesting. So there are many things I don't believe in, and two of them are the education system of this world. I don't believe in it. I believe that it's an industrialized system of learning. There's goodness in schools and colleges, don't get me wrong, and there's goodness in learning also, don't get me wrong. But for the... I think that'll be my last invitation. I'll just make an excuse. I start charging. They couldn't afford me. So I don't believe in that. And the genesis of Roundglass was because of my disappointment and disenchantment with the healthcare system. Of course, I knew the U.S. healthcare system very well because my first startup was in that area, and I kind of knew the system very, very well. how it works, how the business of healthcare works, etc. And I know the system in India also and some other parts of the world. We spend north of $4 trillion on our healthcare. And I would like to understand from this crowd, how many of you proactively go to your doctor or invite your doctor for lunch once in a while? You don't. You go there because of necessity. It's like going to a bank for a loan when you don't have money. You go to the bank when you have money, right? And the system is totally ridiculous. You have payers and providers at odds with each other, each squeezing the other one out. And you have the consumer who has no clue what the healthcare costs. They have no clue. There's so much money to be made in healthcare. I'm telling you, if you want to start a venture, start in healthcare, you can't go wrong. If you're patient, you give it 15 years, you'll be successful in healthcare. That's how screwed up the system is all over the world. And trust me, it's not getting that better. It's just getting more complicated. I don't think my healthcare today is any better than 15 years ago. Yes, we have the best doctors, best science, best instruments, best machines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but it's not getting any better. As a matter of fact, getting more convoluted and complex. So I had that point when I was doing EdFX, I said, been there, done that. I was not going to do another startup. I had no intention of doing another company. But I said, if I do anything in life, and this was predating Roundglass, it has to be revolutionary, it has to be global, and it has to directly impact human beings, humanity. If it doesn't address those three conditions, I will not do anything else. You know, I can devote myself to the service of humanity, no problems. And because of my disenchantment with the healthcare system came the genesis of Roundglass. I said, we have to show people how to live through a foundation of holistic well-being. That should be the fundamental foundation. Make them future-proof for life. How do you deal with issues that life throws at you through the practices of holistic well-being? And that was the genesis of Roundglass. And from there, a lot of other things came about. And Roundglass is not, it's not a typical company. And we can talk more about that.
Yes, I actually wanted to talk about that. So you formed Roundglass in a very interesting way. And there's a message for all of us in that. So talk about Roundglass, the company, the Roundglass Foundation, and what you are now doing with the India Center.
Yeah. So a few things, addition about me. Having done EdFX, and so I have to tell you something that I have never gotten up a single day in my life thinking about money. When I had nothing, when I had some, when I had plenty. I never have. Never have, still don't, in the future I won't. Money has never interested me. What has always interested me, what am I going to do with my life? What do I want to do that fulfills me, right? And my mom taught me there's one lesson I learned from my mom, and we were sitting in India watching Doordarshan News, and there was some businessman got killed in a Ashoka hotel. And my mom was sitting, my dad was sitting, I was sitting, I think my sister was there too. And my mom looked at me and said, I think this is the only thing I remember as a word of advice. She said, Sunny, no matter what happens to you in life, never become like that. Don't become a bad person. Live from integrity. That somehow I listened to her, but never registered. And then I realized that I've always made that a hallmark of my life is live from integrity and live honestly and be authentic. But when Roundglass, the whole idea of Roundglass was not a commercial endeavor that, it is, we never raised money in the first company. I put a lot of money into it, made a lot of wrong decisions. While EdFX can write a book about how to be an entrepreneur, a successful one, Roundglass can write a book about what not to do when you do a startup. We made so many mistakes. You'll somehow think, Sunny, I think you lost your mind. You should just go retire and just meditate somewhere. But the idea of Roundglass was a concept of a different kind of company. And so one was, of course, we have an app to show people how to live through holistic well-being, use your practices of meditation and food and well-being music, yoga and movement and breathworks, and all these practices that exist in holistic well-being, how you can combine them, customize and personalize them for you, because each individual is different, in order to deal with life issues like stress in the workplace, anxiety, difficult relationships, difficult emotions, healthy habits, such stuff like that. And in the process, create a very strong foundation for you, right? And I believe that if you live a life of holistic well-being, and you live, the earlier you get into it, it in fact can crash the healthcare system. You'll have to pivot, because you will not need the amount of doctors and medicines and kind of things you need. Most of the lifestyle diseases in our life are caused because of our lifestyle. Because we live such, we reap such. And so that was the commercial part of Roundglass. But the other part was, how do we give back to society? The way I look at Roundglass is we're doing God's work, enabling holistic well-being and democratizing holistic well-being for the world on one side. And on the giving side, we have some really big initiatives. My take is that every company in the world, because companies are best at solving problems, foundations are not, right? I don't believe in the foundations model. Companies, if they don't solve a problem well, they will not survive. So they're good problem solvers if they're surviving. So every company should take ownership of a social issue or a part of a social issue or more than one social issue and take ownership of it and saying we're going to solve it in the next 20 years. They can partner with other companies. If that was a mindset taken by every company, saying instead of just writing a check, we'll own the problem. We can work with foundations, we can work with any number of people, but we'll own the problem. I can show in 20 years from now, there won't be much problems to solve. If every company thought like that, instead of writing checks. So the Roundglass is going to do that. So we took 4 big initiatives. There's a 5th one in the works. The first 3 are in India. And I consider myself to have 2 homes, US and India. I lived half my life in either country. And India first is Roundglass Sustain. India is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. So we are chronicling the biodiversity of India, the wildlife, habitat, human impact stories, etc. And we're going to go to other areas. And in 3 to 4 short years, we are winning international awards. At Jackson Wild, we were the best Indian entry. We were the only selected India entry, and we won the global award. And BBC and NetGeo are coming to us and saying, can you be our technical partners? So tell us what to shoot, where, and how in India. And so we want Indians to become proud of the biodiversity. 1.4+ billion people saying our country is great in terms of biodiversity, and invoke that pride in them. If you think of wildlife today, you go to Africa, you don't go to India. And India has one of the best wildlife and habitats in the world, except we don't focus on it, we don't promote it, we don't make it sexy enough, we don't evangelize it, right? And so the intent is to make it an educative, entertaining way of people, kids, tourists, Indians to go and understand as well as live it and experience it. The second thing we're doing is in sports. We have an ISL club called Punjab FC. We won the I-League. We got promoted into the ISL, which is a top league for football called soccer over here. We're doing very well in ISL. We are last. But don't laugh. Don't bet against me, because in 3 years we're going to win the ISL. But we have an academy. More important is these Roundglass Sports, which is an academy for football with field hockey and tennis as ancillary sports. Our intent with football is to take India to the World Cup by 2038. The decision I made in the Russia World Cup. And so to do that, what do? We have our grassroots programs, which feeds the development centers. They're all in Punjab. Then the development centers, along with scouting all over India, feeds our elite academy, which is under 19, 17, 15, 13, 11. Last year, we'd only had 18, 15, 13. Now this year, we have made them 5, because that's how the categorization is working. All 3 of them were number 1 in India. Our youth academy was number 1 in India under 18, 15, and 13 in less than 3 years. That means we're doing something right. We have a great technical program, great technical staff, great performance team. It's fully residential, fully paid up. We have our own chefs, our own nutritionists, our own well-being program, our own residential, our own school, the whole 9 yards. The kids come there and they think they've come to a 7-star resort. The kids who are orphans, the kids who our parents are daily wage workers. These are the kind of kids we are getting. Those are the kinds of kids we want, because these are the kids who will be very hungry to achieve and rise to the top. That's our football program. Our hockey and tennis program imitates that program. We'll have the professionals, we'll have the elite youth, we'll have development centers, grassroots centers. The elite is pan-India, development grassroots Punjab. We want to show India how to develop a complete sports infrastructure in a state. We'll have 25 development academies in football and hockey by end of next year, right? So think about that. In tennis, the number 1 women tennis player, under 16 number 1, under 14 number 1 are from our academy in 2 years. So that's the sports side of things. The third is foundation, where we are working in as a pilot state is Punjab. We're going to make all the 12,000 villages eco-sustainable. So we have immersive learning programs, sports programs. We're going to plant 1 billion trees in Punjab by 2035, which is 20 years. We are doing waste management, and now we started regenerative farming, because with regenerative farming, we can restore the soil, the water, and the air. There'll be no stubble burning with regenerative farming. There's no seeds required, there's no manure, artificial inorganic manure required, etc. So we're doing that. Those are 3 big initiatives in India. Then we said, the India diaspora has to be involved in the local issues. So we funded the Seattle University India Center. And the intent over there is to build a bridge between the state of Washington and India. So take the business leaders, academic leaders, government leaders, and connect them to the counterparts in India and vice versa. And that's gone off to a rocking start. I think you'll see a lot coming from there. Everything from the State Department is involved, the ambassadors are involved, they love it. We have an appetite to create one more, so we're going to be opening up one more India Center. I'm in conversations with that, with another state, another university. And the last one that we just started is, because I live in the district of Bellevue, is to help the foundations in Bellevue. We're working with BAM, which is the art museum, and LifeSpring, which feeds hungry kids in Bellevue. Can you believe it? There are kids who go hungry in the city of Bellevue. 4,500 of them, and some of them are homeless. So he said, we'll fix that, and we're working with the police. We're going to work with those 3 areas and have the India diaspora and friends get involved in local issues. So that's the extent of giving. Sorry, it took a lot of time, but I think it's important that if somebody can dream of a few things like this, each one of you can do so too. And my only request to all of you is, I'll take a few seconds. If you own 90% of the pie, if you have a company, you own 90% of the market share, you feel pretty good, right? You will say, yeah, 90% is pretty good, I'll take it. So if you take 90% of your time and you devote it to yourself, and you only take 10% and devote it to the happiness of somebody else, I think that's a fair ask. You can take 10% of your time, eventually 10% of your money, to make somebody who's not as happy or privileged as you, to make them happy, and give them something so that they can be uplifted in life. And that's what I think all of you and all of us should be doing.
That's a great way for us to end. Thank you very much, Sunny. Great advice. I think what is actually very fascinating is this whole notion of picking a few important issues and then going deep. And if each one of us did that, both in this country and from where we come from in India, I think we can actually see enormous amount of change, and the world will become truly a much better place.
So Akhtar and TiE, thank you for inviting me and patiently listening to me. So I really appreciate that. And to all the entrepreneurs out there, if you ever want to have a guftagoo with me, I'll be happy to share my experience and provide my opinions or my feedback, or have conversations with me. You can reach me at sunny@roundglass.com. I'll be happy to do so.
Thank you. Thank you very much.